Welcome to a long-awaited podcast. I've had Chris on multiple times. Maybe some would say multiple times too many, but Kevin.
I would say that.
Kevin, I'm happy to have you aboard, man, and congratulations on having a kid.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, so I'm glad we could work this out. Chris has come on this podcast and shit talked me for far too long. So
I've tried to stick up for you. Anybody that's named Kevin's got to be a great guy.
I don't know, man. There was this movement in the recent past year or so, particularly in the COVID time frame, where Kevin was supposedly the male Karen. The name Kevin was put into that basket of as the male Karen, which I fully am against for obvious reasons.
How do they check that though? Like, how did Karen even become a thing?
It starts with the same letter, so they just rolled with it. I have no idea how that worked. But
I looked through like every psychopath or mass shooter throughout history. Like, it's always John. It's always got to be a John.
It's always three names, right? The psychopaths always have the first, middle. They always say their first, middle, and last name.
When they introduce themselves?
Yeah. When they talk about them in history. When they talk about them in history, it always seems to be the guys with three names that
person introduces themselves with three names. That's a sign to get away.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. But speaking of getting away from people, you got to spend some time with Chris actually this past week. How'd that go?
His daughter is fearless. So yeah,
Tammy,
Chris,
the youngest, she's a lunatic.
So Chris came to my town, for people listening, and I finally got to hang out with him on the beach. But this is how it goes. Ocean City, I didn't think was going to be packed. I don't know why. I don't like going to the beach, even though I live here. Just there's no point once it's here. I'd rather just wait till off season and enjoy it. But I was like, all right, I'll go to the beach. He's like, we're off to the left. I'm like, okay, left. So there's probably not that many people on the beach. I get there's thousands of fucking people. I'm like, where's left? And he's like off to the right. But I guess the way he was looking, it looked left of the building, like if you're staring at it. And he comes over and goes, what's up, man? We go and sit down. I introduce myself to everybody. And then his daughter comes up, and there's a girl in front of where we're sitting looking at the water that has like a bandage wrapped around her whole like arm. And I was like, let's play a game, Chris. And he's like, what? And I'm like, guess what happened to her arm? And he's like, okay. He's like, I think she got burned. What would you say if you saw a girl with a bandage all over her arm?
Well, if I was at the ocean, I would probably assume shark attack, I
don't think you're going to be at the beach the same day as a shark attack. But I was thinking like maybe it was like a road rash or carpet burn. Like kids do dumb things. I mean, kids, when I was a kid, was like you drag your friend down the steps while he was sleeping and he'd just scream, hey, and then like you're just yanking him down 30 flights of stairs. But now it's like kids stick a firecracker under a bottle or something and have it explode into their butt. I've seen videos on Facebook, so that's not a made up thing. But I was like, it's probably
you're watching very different videos than me.
Look, Facebook is amazing at 1 o'clock in the morning. You're going intense. But his daughter comes up and we're still speculating. I'm like, go ask. And she just comes up and goes, I'll ask. And then we're like, fuck it. And she just goes,
send in recon, man. Let her go.
And she goes and asks. And the girl was like, oh, yeah, it was a coffee burn. But she was saying it to Chris's daughter, and then Chris just overhears it and goes, oh no, did you guys sue? And I'm like, that's the main thing you're thinking of. She also has a bandage on her fucking leg. How did she get that? Like, how are you drinking coffee or you have a bandage on your whole arm and at the same time on your leg?
Well, I mean, Chris's litigious ass, that doesn't surprise me. I'm surprised he hasn't sued you for slander yet. But I actually had an experience when I was younger. I was at a house, a friend of my parents, we were all hanging out, younger kids around, and one of the younger kids everybody's messing around. They're in the kitchen and pulled a hot pot of coffee down off of the kitchen. It spilled all over and gave like second-degree burns on her arm and stuff like that. So maybe it could have been something like that where she just grabbed a pot of coffee or something hot, spilled a coffee. It didn't necessarily need to be in the drive-thru at McDonald's, that whole lawsuit thing that you always hear about where the coffee's too hot. So that's interesting though, that it doesn't surprise me that Sammy would fearlessly go up to some unknown child with an injury and ask her how she got it.
I'm the type of person that I've had a really, like, my childhood best friend who made the intro to my show, his dad had like would always walk around in his underwear. He used to like he was in the war, which is like how you can make up for him walking around in his underwear. But he, whenever like little kids playing like Call of Duty or playing whatever, he would just come downstairs, go into the kitchen. His whole back was like different skin. And I was, when you know he's in the military, my whole thought when I was a kid was like he lost it in like a battle or he had
Right.
severe
Yeah.
burns. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm never going to ask about it because that would be insensitive to a person that was in the military. Freaking, I ended up asking when I was like 20. So like we're 20 years in the line of like since he's known me since I was a child. And I'm like, all right, man, I gotta ask. How did you get that? And he goes, well, when I was a kid, I was cooking. And I was like, you got that from a cooking incident when you were a kid? He goes, what'd you think I got it from? I was like, the war and shit. You were in the war.
You thought he got hit by like an IED in like Afghanistan or something like that.
I built
like,
up a whole backstory where I had literally lost respect for him after asking and clarifying the whole thing for it. Like there's a guy at my gym, he's got no legs, but they're metal, but he always wears camo. And I'm like, it's got to have to do with the army or something.
Yeah, it's Lieutenant Dan.
Well, getting to know the guy after like 4 years later, I finally decided to strike up a conversation. He's like, oh, I did the Paralympics, where you would like the handicap. He's like, I won a couple gold medals and stuff. I'm like, that's awesome. I'm like, but how did you lose your legs? Like, did you lose them in the war? He goes, no, I lost them diabetes. And I was like, fuck, don't ask. Don't ever ask. Just assume and let it go and build it up in your head.
It's bad when the injury bums you out. That's probably a bummer to them too. We see like the disappointment on your face.
It's like telling a kid Santa Claus isn't real. And you see the glimmer of hope go from their eyes. Like, I thought you were a hero.
When Santa Claus doesn't have legs and you find out that it wasn't from falling down a chimney into a fire, it was from diabetes. That's gotta be a bummer.
You were a thinker as a kid, weren't you? That should be a main kid's question. How is he going down the chimneys and landing that fall?
Yep. How is he not breaking his legs or not burning them off of the fireplace that's actually burning?
With especially like with let's talk about the kids nowadays. So I was just watching more videos on Facebook before this podcast, and it was like going into school after the pandemic's over with. And it's like, everyone's just like, they're distanced away from each other, but they have no social skills. And I was like,
right. Yeah.
Where it went somewhere. Where did that skill go? Did it go into tweeting? So like instead we now communicate with our thumbs.
Yeah. I mean, you know me, you've heard the podcast of how I will bemoan social media until the day that I die as the downfall from society.
Thank God that fucking competition thing that's been going on for a couple of months is over. Holy shit.
Yeah, Chris is the one to blame for that. Jesus Christ. Only he could make a 1 month competition stretch out for 3 months. But yeah, I mean, it's a situation where like younger kids there's no muffler on them, they'll just dive right in. But older kids like teens and stuff like that, yeah, I don't know where that went. Like I said, I think it's a communication thing. Like social media, they're so used to now communicating digitally that a physical conversation with them is always awkward. But I tend to think that there are some kids, but I mean, most kids probably just don't want to talk to adults.
I just look at it like I've seen like maybe 30 years ago, I've seen pictures of my dad's high school and the kids that they all look like they're adults as like teenagers.
Oh yeah.
I look at them now and I'm like, you look like you're fucking 10. Well, I'm 33. It's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. What are you?
Yeah. Once you figure out, like, once you have to come to terms with the fact that kids are born in 2000 are now 21, it's just like that. That blew my mind. It was like, if you were born in the year 2000, you can basically drink. And I was just like, I don't like to think about that because I graduated high school in 94. So that thought, like in my head, I was like, oh no, man, I'm getting way too old, way too fast.
You look good though. Holy, I don't like the Steelers jersey you got behind you.
Oh, we'll get into that, I'm sure. I wanted to ask you about, because you said, you're in the Maryland area, Ocean side of Ocean Maryland. City. And you said, yeah, I just meant you're in the ocean. You're on the seashore.
I can see it from my backyard.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, Chris and I grew up at the beach too. And You had said, you don't like going to the beach, particularly around the time of when it's like peak season, summertime. Did you have a term for in Maryland for what you call like out of towners that come to the beach, or
Tourists.
you just call them tourists?
Yeah, which
So there
I
was a
mean,
term. There was a
uh,
particular term that we had, so I wasn't there sure that if there was something in Maryland that they would term.
like
It,
townies, townies.
yeah, kind of. Townies are the people that live there and never leave 5 minutes from where they were born. That's a townie. But the people that come from out of town during the season, in our area, were called Shoebees. That's what they called them. So the reason they called them Shoebees was that back in the aughts, like the early 1900s, they would actually bring their like beach lunches and stuff in their belongings to the beach in a shoebox. And that's how they would bring their stuff to the beach and keep sand and stuff out of it. They would bring it in a shoebox. So the term for the people that would travel to the beach they called them shoebees at the Jersey Shore. And that's still what they call them to this day. So I wasn't sure if anything like that in Maryland existed in the beach towns there.
It's funny. I was talking to Chris. See, here's the weird thing is when I sent you that picture of me and Chris on the beach, you know how
Mm-hmm.
much shit I got for posting that on my Facebook when I was tagged in it?
No, why?
Everyone's like, during COVID, you're on. I'm like, oh fuck, are we ever going to move the fuck along with this thing? Like, it's not just me either, but they're like, I was getting singled out by like everyone I knew that was like,
Right.
how dare you super spread it? I'm like, what the fuck do you think? If I stayed home, there's just one less asshole on the beach. Everyone else is still there. They're not
Yeah,
going
yeah, they're
anywhere,
not
but
all
they're like,
going
no,
anywhere.
I
Yeah,
can't
it's all your fault.
disassociate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I was telling Chris, I was like, when I eat a sandwich was the only time I ever ate it was on the beach. So I only had sandwiches. All I had when I went to school lunch was something different. It was mozzarella sticks, pizza, or chicken
Right.
sandwich or something like that. But regular peanut butter jelly sandwich was always for
Right.
the beach. So whenever I bite into one, I don't trust it unless it has sand in it. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, well, that's the only time I've ever experienced it. Even if you keep it in the fucking bag, sealed shut,
Right.
so sealed, so tight, it's like, I don't even know an example I could use to it. Like the sanctity of religion, it's sealed so tight that you could open it up. And then as soon as you open it up, like sand particles
Oh,
just
it's
fly right into it.
immediate. Yeah. My concern was less about sand and more seagulls. Like a bird's
Kill
gonna
them.
come and bird's gonna come and snatch your sandwich out of your head. One of the worst pranks I ever pulled on one of my friends was we were at the Wildwood Boardwalk, and he was giving me a bunch of shit. I don't remember what the main root of the cause was, but I crunched up I had a bag of Doritos and I crunched them up real small, the bottom, and I dumped them on his head while we are standing on like the pier looking out, and the seagulls just came
Swarm.
ravenously for his head. That was not cool with me.
There was a big trend, I think like 3 years ago, but someone found out if you feed a seagull Tums, do you know what happens?
Oh yeah, it was like the Alka-Seltzer or whatever, like
It's a
blows their stomach up or
$1,000
something.
fine if you kill a seagull. I'm like,
Yeah,
shit, man, I don't
exactly.
want to kill one of those.
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't be killing seabirds randomly unless they take something from you, like your sandwich.
Sometimes I'm trying to
Then
park and one's just sitting in the spot and I'm like, it's not gonna move, so I'm just gonna have to go.
have to run you over. Sorry, buddy. So you teach jet skiing, right? Or you were a jet ski instructor, or have been in
I
the
was
past?
for almost 5 years.
Okay, so because we're talking about like tourists and stuff like that, have you ever had the experience with someone renting one and just being a complete lunatic and almost killing themselves and or others
Multiple
regularly?
times, but
Yeah, I was
in
gonna
my
say.
on my like 40th episode, I had my boss on, the owner, and he was
Okay.
thinking if it was going to be more of an interview. And I didn't realize at the time because there's a certain ethnicity of jet skiers that are very obnoxious. It's more like Indian people, and it's not trying to be racist. It's just that's what happens when they come over here. They don't have water, like how a beach to
Right.
them is magnificent, is like this thing that they don't have in their area. It's much like if I go to
Right.
the mountains, I've never seen mountains a whole lot, so I'm like fucking
Right.
a kid at Camelback just running around like this is awesome. I get hit by a fucking snowboarder. But they like that. They get like 4 on a jet ski. You're not supposed to do that. but it's expensive. I do the same shit. I'm a broke person, so like it's
Right.
$160 for an hour, and you barely get an hour. So like,
Right.
I try to get my boss to talk about like, hey, what's the worst riders you ever had? He goes, yeah, sometimes stupid people that don't do stuff. I'm like, but what are those stupid people? And I didn't realize what I was doing because I was trying to tell him to say like, oh, it's this. But now looking back, it's the owner of a company. It's looking at it as a business aspect of
Right.
it. And
Yeah.
I remember the next day I was completely clueless. I was working, and then my other boss just comes up. He goes, you tried to get the owner to say that on air. I was like, what? It's an ethnicity of people that we get some foreign people on the jet skis and they crash into each other and they have money. They have so much money. They just toss it out like it's nothing. I'm like, that's not racist. That's true. Because you can't say that in today's times, which
Right.
especially in today's day and age, me even saying that is going to get me probably some shit. But people call me racist. They say I have too many white people on. I'm like, fuck it. I don't know. I'm not trying to. It just happens.
Well, I mean, it's not like you're pigeonholing a certain group. Your experience is at this time you were working that most of the time when accidents occur, it was a certain ethnic group of people that were creating those accidents. Most of the time when I saw it when I was growing up down the shore, because we were required to get take boating safety courses and get a boating license when we were in high school. Like we were taught to know like the rules of the bays and the channels and where you're supposed to go and reading channel markers and buoys and all that stuff. And most people that come in and rent this type of stuff they have no idea what they're doing. They just get on and it's full throttle. So most of the time I saw it was just like fucking drunk bros that would rent these things and just take off. And like I remember one guy took one to the side of the head. I had to go like to the hospital, and he probably goes and gets the mail and the helmet now for the rest of his life.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, it's just like that shit is crazy, man. They don't care. It's nuts to me. Like I saw it all the time growing up down there. People that just get in boats or get in watercraft that are basically motorcycles, no helmet on, all they have is a life preserver, and just take off and go flying. It's freaking crazy.
It's just because like when we say it's like a certain race or something like that, it's not that it's stereotypical like how they say like Asian people are bad drivers. That's not what it
Right.
is. What it
No.
is if you don't have that in your area, it's brand new to you and you've never had that experience before, and it's very distracting on those things. I was hit by somebody going 45 miles an hour. They went up me like a ramp and put me in the hospital. I was only in there for like an hour or so, but almost killed
Right.
me.
Still. Yeah.
But I mean, I've been out in like when Sandy Hook came, I was out in that. I was like the waves in the bay were as
Wait,
big as
Sandy
the
Hook?
ocean. Yeah, that shit was nuts. Not Sandy Hook. Damn it.
Oh
Why do I
my
do that?
what?
It's a fucking Mandela effect. Sandy
I'm
Hook, or
like,
what's the other one? Hurricane
oh,
Sandy.
there
That's
you
what it
go.
is. Uh,
Very different
I
things.
was there when all the kids were going through their panic attacks. No, I'm just
I was riding a jet ski through there.
that's not the first time I've mistaken those. It's like when I
Wow.
said Brendan Fraser was with J Lo and it was fucking Ben Affleck. I was like, fuck. I got these
Brendan
weird
Fraser
connections.
wishes.
I got a lot going through my head. Damn it.
Brendan Fraser's like, fucking yeah, let's do that. Let's have ourselves a fucking what was the movie where they do the old switcheroo? They always do that in the movies. Why can't I think of it?
This
There was the one with
podcast
there was
is
the
not
one
making me look good. I can tell you that much.
there was the one with the Fred Savage. It was Fred Savage and Judge Reinhold, vice versa, where
The
they like
Mummy?
switch lives. Well, no, they switch lives. So I'm
Freaky
saying that's
Friday?
what, yeah, the Freaky Friday type situation. So like Ben Affleck and I bet Brendan Fraser wishes he could have like a Freaky Friday with Ben Affleck, because Ben Affleck's had a much more promising career and female relationships than Brendan Fraser, at least in my
Did
opinion, anyway.
did he have like a medical issue or something, or what happened with him where Brendan Fraser just lost like everything? He was hot in the Mummy. I saw him. I was like, that's
Yeah,
a good looking dude.
yeah, I don't know, man. I saw him in there's an HBO series that's based off a weird DC comic, and the name is slipping my mind too. You got me first thing on a Monday, man.
Doom? Doom Patrol?
Doom Patrol, yeah, and he looks hellishly bad. I mean, before he becomes a robot, but yeah, he looks in rough shape in that.
I wonder what happened though, because it's just like, see, I'm starting to think that there's a conspiracy. Is if you ever since that John Cena video where he apologized in Mandarin, I can't look at him the same. I'm like, yo, it's just like the stories of SNL. If you don't play ball, you don't do what they say. They fucking, you're done. You're out. You're out of the business.
Well, a lot of people said that about Val Kilmer too, and then it came out that he had like throat cancer. You know what I mean? Like people thought that he was just, because he was in everything for a while, and then all of a sudden he just vanished, and people are like, "Oh, he wasn't playing ball with the Hollywood." Val Kilmer was in Top Gun. He was in he was in a bunch of shit. He was Jim Morrison in The Doors. He was.
You're naming a bunch of shit I don't know. I've seen Top Gun, but all I can remember is Tom Cruise and his Scientology face.
Yeah, he's. Oh God, what else is Val Kilmer? He's in so much. He's in so many things, and half of them are slipping my mind. The one he was Doc. He played Doc Holliday in Tombstone.
Okay.
But
we need like a nice like Jesus movie where Jack Nicholson's Jesus.
I don't know what that one is.
I'm saying we need one. Like society needs to make get on that shit.
I haven't seen that one. Just because it doesn't exist. So as a Maryland resident, you want to get into the elephant in the room of my Steelers.
I kind of hate you. You know how I rationalize you being a Steelers fan is that in Pittsburgh, the reason why they decided to build all the main factories, like the steel factories there, was because the climate. They used the clouds because they thought that people could spy on them through this from space with satellites.
Is that true? I never heard that.
Yeah.
That's
any main distribution or manufacturing place was mixed in like Seattle or mixed in some dreary climate because they would have all their main producers there. So in war, people couldn't tell through the clouds with their surveillance cameras because everyone thought they were spying on each other. So they built all their major factories and steelworking, anything that would pump up for military purposes or just industrial purposes in dreary climates.
That's crazy. It's funny too, you say that because I talk about the dreary climate in Pittsburgh because it's so true. And a lot of people don't realize that haven't spent any significant time in Pittsburgh is that I randomly ran into someone who was from Pittsburgh doing a vendor oversight thing in Florida. And I was talking with this woman. I'm like, just casual conversation. Where are you originally from? She's like, oh, I was from Pittsburgh. And I'm like, what made you move away from Pittsburgh? And she was like, 40 straight days of gray. She was like, it was 40 straight days where it was just overcast. And it's like that a lot out there. There is a very dreary element to, there's some people that are rough around the edges, probably a lot because of the weather out there. It's cold in the winter and it's gray 80% of the time.
Would you rather be in a place that's sunny and perfect 24/7, or would you rather be in a place that's like hell? Because anything above that would just be an improvement, right?
I mean, would you rather live in Pittsburgh or San Diego? You know what I mean? Like San Diego's like 75. San Diego's like 75 and sunny, or 80 and sunny all year long. I tend to move towards. I mean, I grew up 5 minutes from the ocean, so I always want to be on or near the beach. Like that's what does my heart good. But at the same time, I'm such a child when it comes to Christmas. Like I would be so bummed out if I was in like Southern California for Christmas and you go outside on like, Christmas Eve and it's like 80 degrees. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like Christmas if it's not cold out, at least not to me anyway.
I was on when I was talking with Chris was like, man, you're a young stud. Look at all these beautiful ladies out here for you. And I was like, they're not, I'm sorry, not my taste. He's like, what do you mean not your taste? There's beautiful dudes too. I'm like, no, not that. I'm talking about that. Like I work at a gym. I live in a beach place. I get to see the hottest of the hot come into my work. And after, I guess with COVID, it's a lot of people gained a lot of COVID weight, but the people that lost it were the ones I see every day at the gym. So it's like, I don't know if I just got funneled and then all my testosterone from when I was a kid is kind of like just left. And I'm kind of just now at a normal rate where I'm like, I don't need it. It's like if I go to California, everybody's going to be hot. You got to move to like a 5 state. So you're like a god amongst people. You're like walking around Wisconsin, like, where the fuck's wrong with you guys?
Yeah. You want to be a Minnesota 9, right?
A Brad Pitt around toddlers.
The yeah, it's weird because I have family. My parents currently live in Western Pennsylvania. My mom's entire side of the family is from Pittsburgh. Half of my dad's family is from Pittsburgh, and I spent a significant amount of time out there growing up as well. And but you know, I love it out there. I like the time that I spend out there. We just had DJ Bonix on our podcast, who's the DJ for Wiz Khalifa.
Yeah.
He talks about how wonderful Pittsburgh was to him when he was out there. There really are some warm, kind, individuals there. It's a cool place. It's a cool city, to the point where even tech companies started opening headquarter offices out there. I think Google has an office in Pittsburgh, and there was a bit of a tech movement shift there. Carnegie Mellon's there, which is one of the best hospitals and medical schools in the world. But any more than a couple weeks out there, I would be it would bum me out, because it would get a little gloomy, get a little cold, and then it was just man, I'd rather be at the ocean. Even in the winter, I like the ocean better.
I'd rather be in a place because I don't experience it 24/7. I kind of want to get away from it. But when I was going to go see Chris, I was smelling the salt air. I was like, damn, I haven't done this in a long time. This is stuff you're gonna miss. But I'd rather be from a shitty area and then evolve into anywhere I go. If I go and take a vacation, that could just be going to a place that's not even really a vacation spot. It's just better than the spot that you're in. It's different,
Right.
but it's an improvement. Like, people go, I want to see the Grand Canyon. I'm like, I've seen it. It's nice, sure. But after a while, it gets fucking old.
Yeah.
It's a terrible drive up there. It's a horrible experience. But once you're there, it's like, wow, this is glorious. And they're like, well, the bus is leaving. I'm like, we just fucking got here. 3 hours up a goddamn mountain in a school bus.
Yeah, I mean, it's like people in Arizona don't give a shit about the Grand Canyon.
It's just fucking cactuses. They're like,
yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with people that spend all their time at the beach. The beach isn't a big deal to them. What made me appreciate was leaving there. You know what I mean? I grew up there, and then I went to school somewhere else, and then I moved in with Chris in Philadelphia, and then I've been in the Philadelphia area ever since. So I appreciate it so much more now when I go there. I'm like, man, I miss this so much. But at the same time, if I had never left there, or if I went back to the ocean more than a couple of times a year, I probably would be just I probably get to be more ho-hum about it. You know what I mean?
Well, if you could pick a spot to live in anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Anywhere in the world?
You can go China.
Oh, man. Yeah, I probably have moved to Italy. I love Italy.
Why does everyone say Italy or France or Paris?
Yeah, Italy or Spain, I think, would be my two.
Do you speak
I like the culture.
language?
I speak a tiny bit of Spanish, and not a lot of Italian, but I just like the culture. I like the vibes. I like the food, of course. I
live next to an Olive Garden. I don't want to eat it every day.
I appreciate I appreciate places where you can experience multiple segments of culture and environment, within a driving's distance. It's kind of like why I like where we are, on the East Coast, because you go a little bit north, you go to the mountains. You go a little south, you got more oceanic and more warmer climate. You go a little bit west, you have more central, Midwestern, kind of environment, and you can get there by car. Same thing with Italy. You can experience a whole bunch of different shit, and within a 2-hour drive of wherever you're really centered. It's just a cool vibe, and I miss just traveling in general. Obviously, a lot of people are saying that now. But I see my passport in my work bag every day, and I'm like, damn, man, I haven't gone outside of the United States in several years, and it's kind of a bummer, because I like to experience that other stuff than just where I am, or being a stone's throw from where I am.
I don't think I've ever left the United States.
Really?
I'm only 23, so I don't know.
Ah, well, yeah. I mean, that makes a little more sense.
If I was like
I,
40, I probably still haven't left the United States. I don't know if I want to leave.
yeah, I mean, not even to vacation, not even for just like,
I've
you
talked too
know,
much shit. There'll be too many people after me.
wait for me.
I can wait for the CCP is gonna get me when I fucking leave the states. That's the Chinese government.
um, well, yeah, you might want to not go to China then. Um,
They'll get you anywhere. It's like the Clintons.
the
They'll find you. They'll find you.
I mean, I got to go. I was lucky. I got to go to the British Virgin Islands when I was in eighth grade. It was a family vacation, and it was my mom and her brother and his side of the family, and then my parents, and it was such a cool experience. Like I saw wildlife and aquatic life. And I went to this place, went snorkeling, this place called Virgin Gorda, which is like straight out of the movies. Like you've never seen water this blue. I saw a moray eel when I was snorkeling, like shit that you see in aquariums, and I was like swimming with it. And I was like, you'll never get that. I mean, like you go to water in Jersey and you're ankle deep and you can't see your toes. You know what I mean? Like it's a whole different world, and that's something you can't, even if you go to the Florida Keys, you still can't experience something like that, which is why it was cool that I got to do that. So as much as you're afraid of getting black bagged by the Chinese government as soon as you step foot out of the airplane, you still might want to see some part of outside the United States before they get you.
The farthest part I've ever been is Hawaii because I have cousins that live there, and
Oh, cool.
it's just a different experience. Like I think I liked not knowing sometimes about like because everyone would be like Ocean City's so amazing, and to me it's different because I've lived here my whole entire life. I'm used
Mhm.
to it. But then if I go somewhere else, I'm like, this is amazing. But they're like, no, it's the same thing we see every single day, and it's like it's like being in a dome, and then someone tells you you're in a dome, and you're like, fuck, now I can never forget I'm in a dome. Like
Right.
you don't know what's better if you keep having like a can of tuna is all I eat every single day. So then it's like, hey, I don't really care for steak. Why would I want to move to Tennessee? I don't care about barbecue. So then it's like, there's a girl at my work that moved to Ocean City and she's checking like the protein shakes that she's about to drink. She goes, this one, oh, it's got whey in it. I can't eat it. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I'm allergic to seafood. And I'm like, you're in a beach town. The main thing is seafood. And she goes,
Seafood, yeah.
well, I moved here for my kids. And I'm like, you're a good fucking person. Like immediately I thought you're an idiot. And then I was like, you're a good person for
Yeah.
doing that just so your kids can have an amazing view and experience. And you're allergic to fish. I go, so what do you eat? She goes, well, we can't. I was like, whey is just protein powder. It doesn't have fish in it. She goes, no, but the same company that makes it also runs a fishing plant. So you can't have those two mix. And I'm like, oh, it's like when I got salmonella from Honey Smacks. I didn't know that Kellogg's, their same shit was like near something that you can contaminate with Honey Smack or contaminate with salmonella. I was
You
shitting
didn't
for
know
weeks, man.
you didn't know you didn't know you bought salmonella snacks.
I didn't. I went to the Walmart the next day. This was in 2018 when they had the salmonella outbreak for Honey Smacks. And I was like, it
Uh-huh.
was during iceberg lettuce you probably heard about.
Oh yeah, like
Not a lot of
spinach and all
people,
that, and lettuce and all that
yeah,
stuff. Yeah, I heard about that.
not a lot of people heard about the salmonella snacks. So I went in and I was sick to my stomach. And I was like, you know where the Powerades are? Guy's like, yeah. He goes, I saw you here yesterday, weren't you? I was like, yeah, I got really sick last night. He goes, you didn't eat any of that lettuce, did you? I was like, no, it's in my fridge. He goes, good, throw it out. It's contaminated with salmonella. I'm like, damn, all right. I only thing I really ate yesterday was Honey Smacks. Is that what got me sick? He goes, yeah, we had to recall a Honey Smacks too. I was like, fuck. So I sent him a letter. I was like, hey man, like
Right.
I finished the whole box. Like I got sick after each bowl, but I finished the whole box. Because $5. You're not throwing $5 out the door like that. Hell no. That was an experience.
So wait, you ate the rest even though
You're
you knew it got you sick
damn right.
because you paid for it.
I had my mom going, just throw them out, throw them out. I'm like, it's a sense of pride. At this point, I'm too deep. I'm halfway into the box. I got to get the flashlight and then I got to finish the box.
Were you eating them on the toilet? Like
No, you have
shitting
breaks.
and eating was.
You're just like, you would eat and then suddenly you get really sick to your stomach, either vomit or you go to the number two and then you'd be good for like an hour. And I'm like, well, now
Oh
I've
my
cleared some
God.
room. So I might as well go back for I didn't know if it was the honey smacks or not. It could have been like something I had. It could have been the air moisture in the room.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
That's what
So
General Mills sent me in an email. They said, "Did you check the
You're
temperature at your
ridiculous.
house?" I'm like, "Fuck."
Oh, get out of here with that. They'll say anything. Oh yeah, it was the humidity that gave you salmonella. Yeah,
They
sure.
sent me coupons I have on my wall with my name on it, and they're like free for any Kellogg's purchase. I went to Walmart to scan it, and the woman's like, "We don't fucking accept those." I was like, "It says for a free General Mills product on." She goes, "Those look fake as shit." I was like, "I printed them out because they sent it in an email." What do you want me to do?
You're like, here, they're like, here, have some free salmonella going forward. All the
Not even
salmonella you
an
can have.
advertisement either. They could have been a sponsor for the show.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, hey, that's what you should write back to them. Say, hey, you gave me salmonella. Now General Mills should be a sponsor of the Out of the Blank podcast.
I need someone to take a trip to Minnesota with me to go meet the manager because I saw his address in the email. I was like, "I'm fucking coming to you, man."
Oh man, can you imagine like just showing up at that dude's house? It's like, who are you? He's like, you got me sick in 2018. You have to sponsor, to sponsor my podcast now.
It's like Jay and Silent Bob where they find all the people on the internet and go after them.
Oh yeah.
You guys got smooth my balls. They sent me like 10 messages, man.
Yeah, I got some smooth balls, man. Their product works.
Are you actually using it?
Honestly, no, I've Manscaped.
That's great.
I'll shoot you straight.
Oh my God, that's fucking terrific. They reach out to everyone, so I was like, I don't want it. I'm sorry, but I guess I'm promoting them by saying this stuff. So I don't use any of that stuff. I'm good.
That's fine.
I'm Italian, so we don't get any of the nasty business.
You're only 23. You're naturally shorn.
I'm scared to get ear hair. You know when you get the fucking ear hair going?
Believe me, dude, I'll be 45 in September, and I literally have to shave my ears probably twice a week.
Can we stop
at least once a week? Yeah, I could put a gun right here and pull the trigger. And
your hair would catch it.
It all ceases. my ear hair would catch it. It's like bullet stuck in this mat of ear hair. That's my biggest fear, man. Like, I don't want to be that old dude with like looks like he's got party favors coming out of his ears and out of his nose. I can't stand that shit. It's like God's hilarious prank on me is that I can't grow hair on the top of my head, but I grow it in abundance everywhere else. Like this beard is probably like 2 weeks. So like if you look
years right here.
If you look at the podcast with Bonix, I shaved just like the day before that podcast, and that was like 2 weeks ago, and I got this now.
Don't you have more fun like rambling with guests rather than just having like an interview style?
Yeah, I mean, some like I didn't have any real prepared questions for him, and a lot of times, I mean, some of the people we have on that are a little more I don't want to say famous, but have a little less time to spare. It's you kind of want to be as concise and talk about whatever it is they're promoting, or whatever people are going to want to hear from them. I like the more freeform conversation personally. As you know, Chris created our podcast. He likes a lot more structured, segmented type of show. And some people appreciate that. Chris, I mean, it was to his own creation because he knows the way he is, and he'll just fucking he's a self-proclaimed open fire hydrant. You know what I mean? Like he'll just will talk forever. So he created the segmented podcast just to kind of keep things on the rails. But if we're talking to somebody, I'd much rather it be like a casual conversation than be like, so I see that you were in this place at this time. How was that? You know what I mean? It seems contrived and forced. No, I don't really like that.
That's what I prefer about not having it live, is that it's right now it's just me and you. So like later down the road, you could be like, hey man, I don't want it aired. And I'm like, fuck, wow, that sucks for me. But at the same time, it's like you're personally talking to me. So it's like people just get to be like the fly in the room kind of type
Yeah.
situation. Because so many
Yeah.
people I have that come on and they're like, to the listeners, and it's like, I get it if you're doing that, but when they sit, the dude, I had a dude talk to like 30 minutes to a listener, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, I don't even know if this is going up yet. And it's like, hang on a second.
Yeah. And I appreciate your ability to really fire them out there, because you got episodes in the can for days. Like, what do you put out? Like, it seems like you put out an episode almost every day.
I do.
It's crazy, man. That's I applaud you, man. I wish I could find like carving out an hour this morning with you. I was like, oh, I gotta move this, that let me move this meeting or whatever around, and stuff like that. So I appreciate your ability to like be able to just fire them out there. That's awesome.
It would be
Kind of got
it would probably be easier if I had like a study thing where I did like one, like Dan Carlin does like 2 episodes a year, but he studies like 4 hours into an
yeah.
episode. I was like, that seems a lot easier to just cram a bunch in at once. But this is just free flowing thought. You never know. Like I could have a scientist on, next thing you know, it just goes into a different direction where they're talking about like, did you know that armadillos are half badgers? I'm like, what? No, I didn't. I didn't know that.
Like, how high are we getting today?
I've
So
had people smoke on here before and I've gotten
talk.
dry mouth from it. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, how do you do that? They're like, oh, this is nothing, bro. I got another hour of this. I'm like, do you function the rest of the day or do you just not leave your house? Because I would be having panic attacks left and right.
Oh, you're talking about Chris right there, fully functioning. I don't know how he does it.
I didn't even know
I
he
would.
smoked.
Oh yeah, he is smoke dog OG from college. I don't think he's missed a day. He's
Bravo to him.
tremendous, dude. I don't know. I mean, like, I got to the point where I stopped like at 30, and then I came back in at 40, and it was like 100 years past. Like, it went from like this like grainy, crappy dirt weed that you'd have to go to seedy places to buy, to it being literally across the street from my office. Um, and being able to just walk in there and buy whatever the hell you want, as long as you have a medical marijuana card.
I'm trying to get to the
I'm like,
stock game. I actually got Robinhood and
uh-huh.
I I looked up like what's the hemp industry? Like I talked to a lot of cannabis people and people that are working with
Right.
psychedelics and stuff. I'm like, that's got to be a rising stock. It's like $4 a share. I'm like, fuck yeah. But then I checked Dogecoin. Dogecoin's at 0.026432. So it's like less than a quarter for a share.
Right.
So I'm like,
Yep.
800 shares. It's like, it's $5. I'm like, holy fuck. Because look, if Elon Musk crashed it by just one tweet,
Mhm.
you think he's not seeing who's going to be the people that are going to be loyal and stay on that stock until he decides I'm going to jack it all the way up to fucking
Yep.
billions of dollars?
Want me to be honest with you? I have 1 million Dogecoin.
Do you really?
So yeah, I'm like, please. I'm like, Elon, tell somebody that Dogecoin is the shit. Come on, man. Get into it. Like, just get it to 50 cents. That's all I want.
Do
Get
you
that
like
fucker to
Elon?
50 cents. Do I like him?
A lot of people I know don't like him.
I I guess I appreciate him, I would say, because I see that he is what he's created out of what he bought. You know what I mean? He didn't invent Tesla, he bought that shit. You know what I mean? Like, some people think he like invented the electric car. Like, no, he bought a company and created Tesla. So like, what he's done with what he's, put under his umbrella is pretty impressive, and he's innovative and he's interesting, but he's got a douchey vibe to him, like most people that have that kind of money do. It's unpreventable. Do I like him? I mean, he's fine. I don't think about him every day. But I can appreciate what he's done with what he's gotten. The whole billionaires sending themselves into space thing bugs the shit out of me, though. I don't know how you feel about that. Like
Actually,
Bezos and the guy from Virgin Atlantic, Branson, and Elon just trying to launch themselves into space.
see, Elon strikes me as the type of person that is only trying to improve his own life. Like he was digging tunnels in California to build like
Yeah,
this
yeah,
underground highway. Well, he
Yep.
stopped doing that once he left California. Like he's only caring about improving his own life, and he sold a stock at the Doge thing at 420. Like that was a fucking joke for a reason, but
Right.
people
Yeah.
hate him for that because it basically ruined a lot of their like profits and stuff. But
Investments.
then
Right. Yeah.
Bezos just strikes me as a guy who's like been taking shit for way too long, and now that he's rich, he's like, I will give this shit right back out, and that's like the difficult part. Like even with Bill Gates just seems like an egomaniac to me. The only reason
Right.
is because I have an ego issue. So like imagine he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. So he became friends with all the people in the committee so he could get in with them to get a prize. His wife blew the whistle on him being on Epstein's island and everything like that. And there's photos of him, but he has charities that are in his name and people are like, he's a great person. He owns the cancer charity. I'm like, but it's because it makes him seem like a good guy. Cause it's like if I put Kevin cancer charity, now everybody's like, Kevin's an amazing fucking person, not
Yep.
just
I am.
having a cancer charity.
Yeah, a lot of those guys are like that too, and then it boosts their ego as well. Like you said, it's an ego issue. So
It's a dick
you're
pump. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
feel,
yeah. It's like it's like you tie your name to something positive, then you reap the reward of the accolades that come back to you.
That's what's scary is that all the crazy shit with like the immigrant camps and all that. There's no name on that, but then you look into it, it's like, oh my God, it's the president of the United States. You just lose your shit. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah, you don't want to be have the Kevin Hartman immigrant camp. Like nobody's throwing their name on that side.
I thought you said Kevin Hart, like Kevin Hart.
my last name's Hartman, so
you guys are related.
Yeah, totally. I used to tell when I was in like middle school, I used to tell people that Phil Hartman was my uncle.
I used to tell people Tom Barker was my dad.
Really?
No, that's how I met your mother, where Barney's like, Tom Barker's my dad. My dad was to me is the drummer of Kiss because he was in a Kiss tribute band for 30 something years. And he was in a real commercial with the band Kiss. He did a commercial you can look up. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a big band. Played in front of like 50,000 people in front of Rams Head Live. I've said it a couple of times, but like Kiss, everyone's like, you know what Kiss is? You're in your 20s. I'm like, fuck, dude, I was kicked out of the house if I didn't know what Kiss was. Like that was a fucking thing you had to learn.
Yeah, it was especially if your dad's in a Kiss tribute band. What's he gonna let you be like, Kiss sucks?
There are some parents that are like, well, he's just his own person. I'm like, that kid just told you to go fuck yourself. You lay the law down.
Yeah, it said your career is dog shit. How about that?
Does that get scary for you, being about to be a parent, that your kid's gonna have that rebel side?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have it too much growing up. A little bit once I got into like, mine was more along the lines of I had a very specific like path that I wanted to go on when I was in like a junior, senior in high school going into college. Like I really wanted to be in theater. And Chris and I, where we grew up, we got lucky that attached to our high school was a performing arts center, like a brand new performing arts center, 2,000 seat, amazing that we learned all about like doing lights and scenery and acting. And we had a theater teacher, and you could take acting classes at our high school and stuff like that. I was like, this is what I want to do. And I wanted to go out of state. I grew up in Jersey. I wanted to go to either Westchester or Pitt. Parents wouldn't send me because it was too expensive. Okay, fine. I had to go in state. And so I ended up at Montclair State, which is about 15 minutes from the Lincoln Tunnel going into New York City. So Montclair is a really good theater program. Obviously, they're like basically right next to the Lincoln Tunnel there's a train that goes right in New York City from Montclair. So I was like, I want to go in a theater program. It'll be awesome. My dad was like, no fucking way. Are you going to spend my money to go and study theater? You're going to go learn something that you'll actually be able to use when you get out of college and make money. And like, I was just like, well, I'm not going to do either of those things then. And then I just fucking smoked pot and did drugs for like 3 years until I dropped out. And then got in a band with Chris and my friends from high school. and his friends from college. And then we were in a band for like 15 fucking years. But yeah, it was like, I wanted to do that. He was like, no, you're not going to do that. And I could have just been like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. But instead I just went the opposite way. I was like, well, I'm just going to fucking blow your money then. You know what I mean? Like that was my real only, like, my dad's like one of my best friends. Like I love the dude to death. And, you know, we have a really great relationship now, but there was a time from like, probably like 16 to 25 when I was a real piece of shit. So I do have a little bit of fear that my kid will get to that point, but I'm also very well realized that a lot of it was my own fault. And I was like, all right, I know how to kind of correct this and be supportive and understanding and stuff like that. Where my dad in essence was really just trying to protect me. But at the same time, he was just like, I was like, I have dreams. And he's like, your dreams are fucking stupid. You're gonna die in the gutter. And I was like, no, it's like, I want to do this. And he was like, fuck that. But he was the kind of guy that like, he made me get a job when I was 13. You know what I mean? Like I was washing dishes in a restaurant. Like he had 2 jobs. He was a teacher and then he was a bartender in the summer. So it was just like, he's like, you're going to work. That's how you make a living. You work. He's like anything like that. And then I was like, oh, I was really into computers. And this is like the early 90s. So he's like, fucking, we play video games for a living? The fuck out of here. And it was like, and now like, Jesus Christ, like if I had learned coding back then or anything like related to that shit, or even video games, Christ, I mean, like you got literally kids making millions of dollars playing esports competitively. You know, shit that they thought was bullshit back then isn't now. So I don't really have as much of a fear of my kid having like a rebellious side. I'm more scared of my kid just being a danger nut, like moron. Like that's the part of me that I'm really scared of. Because when we were kids, man, we were like Jackass before Jackass existed. And I don't know if you were like
that.
that.
Happens today.
I mean, and I don't know if it's a boy thing or what it is, but I just remember us doing the dumbest shit ever. Like we built a ramp at the end of this dirt hill behind my buddy's house. And then we would launch ourselves on bikes or scooters or whatever off of this ramp and then try to grab onto the branches in the trees.
America. Fuck yeah.
It's like the dumbest shit.
You'd get a scholarship if someone saw you do that today.
Like, and my neighbor and I, they were building a house next door to mine and they just had the frame and the roof. And we took our bikes up to the second floor and then went out on the roof and rode our bikes off the roof of the house, of a second story house, like BMX bikes onto flat ground. Like what are you doing? So that's the part that I'm scared of more than anything is like how many times my kid's going to break a arm or a leg, or, I mean, I'm still doing it. I'm 45. Last year, I tore my groin, hamstring, sprained my knee, and
were you hit by a bus?
And tore my hip labrum skateboarding.
You're still skating?
44. My leg went like 90 degrees out from the side of my body, like straight out from my hip, and everything just went like you heard that, like all popping inside. Yeah, leg straight out, like this. It was fucking bad.
I just I watched those like amateur wrestling, but in their backyard.
Oh yeah.
And a dude was on the top rope and he was like cheering because he won, and he jumped down from the top rope, and the way he landed, his legs land straight, but then they just folded inward where the kneecaps were, so they folded opposite, and he just falls on the ground, and they go, and everyone's just walking over and like standing over them and like tapping them with their foot. Are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, no, get him to the goddamn hospital.
Yeah, I mean, there was a guy, I don't know if you follow golf at all. There's a golfer named Tony Finau who he celebrated after like chipping in for birdie or something along those lines. He like chipped out of the sand for birdie. He like jumped up in the air to like celebrate, and he came down and dislocated his ankle when he came down. His whole foot went completely sideways and dislocated his ankle. I'm like, you did that celebrating, and that's just, hey man, that's karma for you, right? The ego check with your body.
Just can't you celebrate when you get home when you're sitting on your millions of dollars in your fucking room? Like Jesus. Like
Seriously, that's what I'm saying. But that's the part that scares me about it being a parent the most is not work, not like the the mental aspect, is more the physical aspect of things that frightens me, because I was a dumbass when it came to that type of stuff. Yeah, ask Chris. Like, we used to play basketball all the time growing up, and I probably tore ligaments in my ankles probably like 4 or 5 times. Just like rolling your ankle. I was always hurt. Stitches in my arm, stitches in my hand. I cut my finger almost completely off at Chris's house when we were in college. Like, shit like that. There's just like, I'm gonna end up in the emergency room constantly. That's the fear for parenting for me.
well, I think like the scariest video or scariest thing that I could really relate to that would be like when you hear that story about like, well, the kid's in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, and you're like, well, what happened
Yeah.
to him? It's like he dove headfirst into the shallow end of a
Go
fucking
into the
pool,
pool. Yeah.
and he's not able to
Yep.
move his arms and legs anymore. I watched there's recently, I think, I don't remember know if you remember this, but like about a few weeks ago, there was a hockey player that was killed on the 4th of July. So not a few weeks ago,
Oh
maybe a
yeah, he
little
took
bit
a
while ago.
firework to the chest. Yeah, Chris and I
Yes.
talked about it on the podcast.
You don't want that to be your fucking kid.
No, no, it's
You never know when
terrifying.
that's gonna happen. It's like that's.
Yeah.
I remember when I got hit by a jet ski. My dad's face was like that was. He was scared shitless, and he saw me like joking around with the nurses and stuff like that. He's like, "Dude, my biggest fear was that was 20 years like just gone." And I was like, "Yeah, man, I didn't ever even thought because you're a kid, you don't think of that shit, and then you realize, oh God, like yeah, that's a big fear. You raise something for so long and then lose it. Damn."
Yeah, my moment that like that where I 100% should have probably died is a buddy of mine. We're trying to sneak into a campground to meet up with these, to go into this campground with these chicks, and down in at the shore, the campgrounds there, they have like guard stations. Like, when you go in, you show them that you're staying there, and they let you in, and they don't let people in after a certain period of time unless you're staying there. So we were hanging out with these girls. They're like, let's go back to the campground. We're like, oh, it's like after midnight. We can't get in. They're like, I got an idea. You guys get in the trunk of the car, and we'll drive you in there. And then, once we get in there, you can just get out, and then we can all hang out. And we're like, cool. Sounds good to us. We're 19. You know what I mean? We're like, oh, we're going to get laid. It's going to be great. So we get in the trunk of the car. These girls think it's going to be funny if they jostle the wheel around, like jostle us around in the trunk of the car while we're in there. So they start yanking the wheel around, and the girl loses control of the car, flies up into this field, goes through this field, goes through a fence, plowing through this field, comes out of the field. It was like on an embankment, completely like Dukes of Hazards it out of this field. When the car hits the ground, the front axle snaps. So the front tire folds under the car like Back to the Future when the car would fly. Like, the whole front axle snaps, slides across 2 lanes of traffic, and lands in a ditch. Me and my buddy were in the trunk the whole time. And like, if that car had rolled, we end up to get us out. I had a huge cut on I had to get like 11 stitches in my elbow because I spliced my arm on the trunk, inside of the trunk hinge. Um, if that car had like rolled or got hit by somebody coming the other way after a lot, I super duper should have died. And like, that was a hell of a moment when you're like, my buddy blacked out. Like, he lost consciousness. He doesn't remember. He remembers none of the actual crash. I remember all of it. I remember waking him up. I'm like, the car is gonna catch on fire. It's gonna blow up, and we're gonna fucking die. Start kicking, motherfucker. And we're like kicking the trunk until the girls came and let us out. And then we had to walk back to the campground and call my buddy's parents to come and get us.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of those crazy videos where it's like mess ups or something. A dude blew off a firework in his hand and his fingers were gone. And I was like, you know how many moments like you don't think about it until like I guess you're older. But I'm like, I'm not even that old. But I look back at like so many moments, like I shouldn't fucking be here. Like I was talking to my dad about it. I was like, oh, if they're all the accidents I had, he had to come to the hospital and pick me up. And he was like, Yeah, I don't know. What you did was so vanilla compared to what I was doing. And I was like, what the fuck were you doing? He goes, dude, when you were like 5, my dad used to get a new car every single week because he worked at a radio station. They sponsored by giving him a new car. Like, when you see the YouTubers that do like the new
Yeah,
trucks,
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
what he used to do with a car. He used to talk about it on the air and everything. Well, he got a Jaguar. And he was like, dude, I dropped you off at school one time and I was going like 100 something down these back road. And I didn't know this at the time because I was so little. I was either like 5 or 4 or something. It's a kindergarten fucking class kid. And I remember we had a different car that night. Like my dad didn't have a car that whole night. We had a different car later that was dropped off. My dad split the fucking car in half by hitting a light
Jesus.
post, and that light post went right down the middle and split his whole car. Like I asked, I was like, I never even like I was so little, I couldn't interrogate him on a story for it. So I was like, you split a car in half? He goes, you don't remember this? Like it was a big thing. Like I was in the hospital. Did anybody tell you? I was like, I just remember somebody picking me up from school and then you were bandaged up, like at home. Nobody told me anything else. Like, oh, I guess we forgot to tell you. And it's like, it's which I'm not mad at because there are so many times where he's told me something before when I was a kid. It's like as a joke, you joke around with your kids, and then you're later like, you can't do that, or if I do that, the a Yeti will come, and you're like, a Yeti will. What are you talking about? You said when I was a kid that if I didn't eat all my green beans, a Yeti would come, and you're like, fuck, dude, you're 30
That's a lot.
something years old, and you think a Yeti's gonna come if you don't eat like that shit happens, man. You forget to tell somebody something, and next thing you know, they end up being like 30, afraid to eat their vegetables.
Yeah, I mean that it I I'll be honest, like I never expected to have kids. Like this is my first kid and like I said, I'm going to be 45. So I
Did you
was
want
very
them?
much in the I never was against it, but it was never like I never was like I want them. You know what I mean?
Your
Like
kid's
it
gonna
was
listen back to this, be like, Dad, you
that's
fucking
that's fine. I'll tell him to his fucking
I'm
face.
getting a tattoo on my face.
Tell you right to your face. Get the fuck out of here. The No, I mean it was never like a conscious decision for me. Like some people are like, I want to have a family. Me, I was just like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know what I mean? I was never gonna force it one way or the other. And just so happened that it happened. And I'm ecstatic about the opportunity, but I'm terrified of the the fact that I'm the point where I am in my life. Is it going to be weird that I'm like 60 when my kid's 15? You know, um, that's gonna be the weird that's gonna be the weird part. You know what I
You
mean?
were referencing what I said to Chris
What's that?
about your kid holding a mirror up to your nose when you breathe to make sure you're still alive.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna
Um,
do great, man. I'm telling you, you got it.
yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried. My girlfriend is like, this has like been her dream to be a mom, and she's got an incredible family that like I have no worries that this kid will be well cared for. So that I at least have that to fall back on, is the fact that I don't have any concern that the kid won't be cared for and provided for, and will be happy. So my own bullshit doesn't even factor into the equation.
Well, look, through a conversation with you, you seem like a good dude, just like Chris is. I was
Thanks,
a little
man.
bit afraid when I met him. I was like, I'm not gonna get killed. But he had people with him. I was like, he's not gonna kill me in front of his kids. That'd be horrible. Unless his kids are in on it.
I don't know. He is Italian. You don't know what they got. You know what those Italians gonna do.
But it's been a pleasure having you on. I know
Yeah,
you gotta
man.
get
I hope we
get
can
to
do it
work and
again.
everything. But I want
Yeah.
now that I've had you on and him on, we can have you both on at once and do a special episode for it. But where can
Ooh,
people
yeah, I know.
find
I know that's not
digging?
usually how you roll.
I only do it when I've had you both on separate, but digging in the dome, where can people find
Yes,
you at?
sir.
I know you run the Instagram and he runs the Twitter.
Yeah, so it's digging in the dome on all socials except for Twitter, which is at digging dome. So drop the in the and then our website, digging in the dome, will be up probably in the next 2 weeks. The framework of the site is finished. We're just got to finalize getting like the store up where you can buy merch and stuff like that. But we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, digging in the dome, where you can find the video version of our podcast. We're on all the streaming services. We're on Anchor now through Spotify is where our podcast is mainly housed. But check us out on Apple and all the other places where podcasts are available.
And I'll link it all in the description. And thanks for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank.